right, well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
How are we doing today?
Good.
All right. We'll get started here shortly. All right, so a couple housekeeping items. I'm going to ask folks to put their devices away and put them on silent. This morning, the session is going to be interactive. Mr. Johnson and I have prepared a couple of slides to talk to the room. We're not going to sit up here and go through 1,000 PowerPoint presentations because we're here to talk about mentoring. Mentoring isn't through PowerPoint. Mentoring is making a connection with your mentee, having that relationship and having an impact on their life. So, what we're going to talk about today is what they see and what they will be. And that is essentially the motto of 100 Black Men of America. I'm part of the 100 Black Men of Akron, and my co-presenter, Mr. Tyrone Johnson, is the president and the founding president of the 100 Black Men of Akron, University of Akron, which I Region 7. So that's who we are. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about a couple of things this morning, and then really open the floor up to have a discussion, right? Because this is also, it's not just talking about mentoring. We'd like to take this opportunity to do some mentoring. So when we're done, essentially, we'd like everybody, whether you're 15 or 55, to walk away with something that you can say, you know what, it made sense for us to listen to these two cats for 45 minutes. That sound okay? All right, so part of what is important in giving a presentation is understanding your audience. And there's clearly a mix of people in here. So by a show of hands, do I have any middle schoolers? Thank you for attending. Do I have any high schoolers? Thank you, gentlemen. This is incredibly important for you. Listen to me. Because when you take opportunities like this, it doesn't matter where they are or where they come from, you can always take something away from these kinds of experiences. So I applaud you for taking the time out of your life, your busy life, and all the other things that you got going on, to be a part of this event. Do I have any early career? Mid-career? Mid-career? All right, second and late, or late and second career? Okay, okay. All right, thank you. So it's important for us to kind of understand who we're talking about. That's a critical piece of what needs to happen. So, like I mentioned, we are part of the 100 Black Men of America, and I don't like reading off the slides, but I am going to take an opportunity to do that. And really, mentoring begins with the trust and the ability to see everyone's potential. Right? Because as a mentor, your job is to help people see what's inside of them and help them achieve, help them realize it. Not every person begins at the same stage. We all come from different walks of life and different backgrounds. But all mentors can create a positive impact on society, which begins with guiding mentors. So again, that's all I'm going to really read here. I know I've said it's going to be interactive, and again, just trying to get the groundwork for kind of a discussion. So, the agenda. And I'm probably going to leave this slide up for most of the time. So, we'll go through our introductions, talk about who we are and why we're here, talk about what a mentor is and why it's important. We'll transition over into maybe an accountability program, which is something that might be a little bit different in terminology, but we all actually do it. We just may not know it by its definition. Then we'll talk about what I'd like to refer to as I squared. I think it's a very important concept that I hope everyone takes away. And then I'll leave it up to Mr. Johnson to talk about this. So with that, please, Please proceed.
First and foremost, thank everyone for coming today. My name is Tyrone Johnson. I am a third-year computer engineering major here at the University of Akron. Graduated high school in 2019. 2 weeks after receiving my diploma, came here for a summer program, and I've been doing school nonstop ever since, summer as well. So it does get a little bit taxing, but getting the work done. As Mr. Peoples mentioned, I am the president of the Collegiate 100 here at the University of Akron. We are a youth mentorship program. Again, we'll talk about that. Pretty much our core values are faith, finance, fitness, and fashion. We believe if we teach these men these 4 things, we build them up to be the men that they need to be. Other than that, I'm a membership chair for National Society of Black Engineers here on campus. I'm also an RA on campus, so I do interact with a lot of young folks every day within the residence halls. Happy to be here. Can't wait to talk to you guys about mentorship.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. So my story's a little longer. I'm probably more mid-career, and I'm going to take a minute to really talk about that, because part of why you're here is to talk about what you can be. Right? And I'd like to think that part of my story is going to help you understand where you can be, right? Because there really is no limit. There is no limit to where you can achieve. So my name is Tom Peoples. I'm originally from Boston, Massachusetts. I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts. I grew up poor. My mom was a school teacher, so back then teachers didn't get paid through the summer. So I know what the big food stamps look like. I know what government cheese tastes like. I know what government peanut butter tastes like. When I graduated high school, I knew I wasn't going to be able to pay for college the way I wanted. I wanted to go to a traditional 4-year school, and my family couldn't afford it. So I looked to the military and actually enlisted in the military. So I graduated on June 3rd. June 13th, I was in boot camp. So I had a whole 10 days after graduation to enjoy myself. Went to boot camp, and then when I got out of boot camp, I basically served for about a year, and then from there, got out of the Navy, served in the Navy, and went to Rochester Institute of Technology on a Naval ROTC scholarship. So I made my way to RIT with NROTC. So that was the avenue for me. And I studied mechanical engineering, and I ran track. And I worked, and I had a girlfriend. I did all those things in college, right? Did the college thing, but the Navy paid for it. Now, because the Navy paid for my education, I had to go back into the Navy after. I served as a surface warfare officer in the United States Navy. So, upon graduation from Rochester Institute of Technology, I went to Newport, Rhode Island, where I went to Surface Warfare Officer School. From there, I went to Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. I spent 2 years on board the USS Fletcher, a Spruance-class destroyer, and I was the gunnery officer. Big guns, little guns, you see on the warships out there, big guns fired. That was the department I had responsibility for. I finished my tour on the Fletcher, went back to Newport to engineering officers, and then I went to the USS Hewitt out of Yokosuka, Japan, as the main propulsion assistant. So I had responsibility for the engine and engineering systems on board another Spruance-class destroyer. I spent another 2 years on the Hewitt. We moved from Yokosuka, Japan to San Diego, and then I got out. I got out in San Diego after my first tour and came to work for Goodyear. So I got to Akron in 1998, technically 99, January 4th, and started at Goodyear. I started as a tire engineer, basically doing tire engineering, tire design. Did that for about 5 years. Then I moved to San Angelo, Texas. Spent 5 years in our proving grounds doing tire evaluation, tire testing. Now, I'm going to pause for a minute. San Angelo is fantastic. 7,250-acre facility, 300 vehicles, and nearly 58 miles of roads. You talk about a good time for somebody who likes vehicles. That's the place. It's like a visit. Left San Angelo and went to a factory. So I worked in a factory as a quality manager in Danville, Virginia. From there, came back to Akron in 2011 and was actually in marketing. So my degree is in mechanical engineering. And while Goodyear actually paid for my master's degree, this is important. This is important. You understand and listen to. When you start working, a lot of the companies that you work for may have a program that pays for tuition. Goodyear paid for my tuition for my master's degree. So get back to Akron in 2011, and I was actually in marketing. I spent time as a project manager, and then from there, moved back into our technical organization and had basically varying leadership roles until 2015 when they sent me to Brazil. So my family and I have I'm married, 3 children. All 3 are going to be in college starting this fall, which is kind of crazy on that. But went to Brazil for a couple of years, had an amazing time down there, and then came back in 2017. And again, have been in various roles. Right now, I'm the Senior Manager of Lean Operations for the Americas. So I have responsibility for the Americas. That's from basically the bottom of the Americas to the top of the Americas, and really the way our processes work as far as tire development. So that's a little bit about my background. And it's important for you to hear that. Why is it important for you to hear that? Because it can be your story as well. Right? No matter where you are right now, again, I grew up on government cheese. I'm not eating government cheese now, thankfully. But the opportunity is there. And we're going to talk about a couple of things that I think might help, at least I would hope, would help you focus and decide on what's going to be the best path for you. So again, I appreciate everybody kind of humoring me with my story, but I think I'm proud of my story. And I think it's a story that a lot of people need to hear, because you don't see people like me that have had the experiences that I've had, right, in general. Right? I'm not a unicorn. I'm a guy. I'm Tom. I'm a nerd. That's Star Trek. I'm a regular guy. All right, questions? Because this really needs to be interactive. Questions? A lot coming at you. Why'd I get up? Anything? No? Yes, sir.
I have a question for you.
Of course.
So your story was a lot shorter than his. So I just wanted to know, like, what are your future plans?
Well, first and foremost, I am not as old as Mr. Peoples here, so my story is a little bit short. Just messing with you. My mom, my dad, those were the very first 2 kind of mentors in my life without me even knowing. We'll touch on that here in a second. As I started to get older, I understood the importance of the village, right? And so I feel, in my opinion, that's one of the things that we've lost over the years, but thankfully my parents have had, individuals that they've kept in contact with, whether that be me going to a daycare center with somebody else's family that's a close friend, and so, and going to, hanging out with different friends and family, close relatives and everything like that, I really didn't understand the importance of how that kept me, in a place where I could thrive, right? In high school, I wasn't the smartest, I'll say. I never touched a 3.0 in my life until I came to college. I was always like the 2.5, 2.8 guy. Definitely wanted to be in the crowd, be one of the cool kids, right? And that really, deferred me, later on, in the colleges and everything like that. Thankfully, University of Akron had a lot of opportunities here. So like I mentioned, after I graduated high school, boom, straight to summer program. I don't know if you guys can see it, but one of the residence halls right down the street over there is where I stayed. It's called Exchange. So I was there with a bunch of my friends for a summer program. And I'll touch on accountability partners here in a little bit. But before I even knew it, those were my partners, right? So we could study together, go out to eat together, play sports together, and all that stuff really kept me within, school grounds and focused on my schoolwork. I applied to be an RA my sophomore year. Thankfully, I got the position, still am. I'm an RA now, just got put in another building for the fall. And so I told myself I would get really involved early on. So working in an admissions office, giving tours, speaking at events such as this, Diversity Day, Senior Day. So I guess in terms of my story, I definitely was very, very driven early on. And so that's something that my parents instilled in me. And so, with me being the president of the Collegiate 100 now, that's something that I look to hand down to a lot of younger guys as well. I think it's very important for us as Black men in particular to rise up to the occasion, become leaders. We don't see that often. So that's pretty much what my drive is in terms of me holding leadership positions and doing everything that I do on campus to just be a beacon and a light, in the midst of everything else that's going on. So hopefully that answers your question. But yeah, that is my little bit more detailed experience of mine. So.
Tom, I'll hit you with a question. If you don't mind. I think I know the answer based on your story, but allow you to say it. This is softball. Growing up in Massachusetts and knowing that you have access to resources, did you feel that tension of wanting to do something more or different or better? And if so, what did you envision your way of achieving that difference or making that difference happen?
Okay, excellent question. Thank you for asking. So growing up poor, right? I saw other people achieve, and I was pretty good in math and science. So there were people in my life saying, hey, you're good in math and science. You should be an engineer. You're good in math and science. And the reality was I was pretty good in math. I wasn't a thorough student, but I was pretty good with the math. And what I originally thought, and this is another important point, I was going to be an Air Force test pilot. That I knew at 13 years old, I was going to be an Air Force test pilot. So that was going to be the path for me to get out of where I was at and get to, something, right? And that seemed, it was like, okay, this is it. And actually, when I was in high school, I applied to and got the congressional nomination for the Air Force Academy got the nomination. And then they brought some cadets to talk to us, and I was like, this is not what I don't want this. But, so really, I saw things, so let's go back, late 80s, right? So we don't have social media, we don't have the internet, and, basically you see what's on TV, right? And then if you watch network television in the late 80s, you had like the Cosby Show, A Different World, and there were every now and then on some of the TV shows, you might see a black person that wasn't getting incarcerated. You might see every now and then a black person that wasn't, a janitor. There's nothing wrong with being a janitor. Let me be very clear. If you want to be a janitor, be the best janitor that ever lived. It is a noble thing to do. But the imagery that existed, that it was like, you never saw on TV a black engineer unless it was almost performing, right? It was almost they were making fun of this Urkel type person. I'm a nerd, but I'm not a my parents don't want me. I realized that I'm aging myself. Look up Steve Urkel, you know what I'm talking about. But there weren't examples for me to look at and say, you know what? I know I want to do something different. I mean, I got family. My cousin, who was about 8 months older than me, we can talk about this. I remember a very distinct time where we were close. Like, we used to always hang out, and his first cousin. And he started going down a particular path. It was like, Tom, let's go. Get in the car. I don't know if I'm really into that activity. And one of those nights, he got shot in a drive-by shooting, right? He survived, but spent several months in the hospital, still got, holes in him. And, I don't want to be that. That is not the life I want. It's flashy money, quick dollars, whatever. Not for me. I want to be able to be 52 years old, standing in front of a group of young men and women and people talking about their potential and their ability to grow and their ability to go on and do whatever it is they want to do. So, long-winded answer, I think, to your question. Hopefully I answered it because I can babble at times. But for me, it was like, I know I wanted to do something different. And the military essentially was a vehicle for me to get my education, to then be able to go on to do other things. So really, it was like, I was an athlete, but I wasn't that great. I was a state level track athlete, but that doesn't get you. I wasn't going to big D1 track school or anything like that. So that really wasn't. The Olympics weren't in my cards. Yes, sir.
I have a question. I would consider myself, I guess, mid-career or leading to almost late career. And you mentioned how you've had so much success and worked in different areas through the years. How have you managed to deal with the diversity as far as moving from one position to the other and being an African American male with when you work for some, you know, specific, like corporations or employers, there's barriers in your way that kind of discourage you from, you know, moving forward. So how do you handle that? Being someone that has moved from, you know, different diverse areas with your employer.
Thank you for that question. There's actually one of my coworkers in the room. We actually have conversations about it. So being black, I consider myself black, and there's a lot of schools of thought on what we call ourselves. People that aren't black, aren't African American, can get into a lot of debates. I consider myself black. There's a whole other story. I'll talk about it afterwards. Being a black man in the Navy, I was often the only black officer on the ship, right? So all my counterparts were white or Asian. When I got to Goodyear, I was the only, till to today, I am typically the only black person in the room in any meeting I'm in. So to answer your question, early on, I said to myself, and we're jumping ahead, I can control two things. I can control my integrity, and I can control my initiative. So my integrity, your integrity is, you are gonna do the right thing aligned with your values, no matter what. No one can take that away from you. That is a choice you make. That is a choice you make. Your integrity is inside of you. And if your moral compass, and I'm not talking about biblical, I'm not talking about what you believe in outside of here, but if you are willing to stand and do the right thing, then your integrity will become unquestionable. And then take an initiative. I raise my hand a lot. I'll do that. I'll do that. I'll go there and perform this, right? So you said success. I actually didn't. I just had a lot of different roles. Now, I've had some success, let me be clear, but not everything went as planned. And really, a big part of it is I know who I am when I walk in the room. Doesn't matter if I'm the CEO or the guy that's moving boxes. I know who I am, and I know who I am every day. And I'm not going to change that around my values. No one is going to influence my values. And then take an initiative, find it and fix it. So gentlemen, ladies, find it and fix it. We're jumping ahead to where I wanted to get to on my I squared. Your integrity is, if you don't have integrity, then you really need to evaluate what you're about. This is foundation. And your initiative, this is a little bit, this requires you to say, you know what, I'm going to do the hard thing. I'm going to demonstrate that I am willing to do the hard thing, and then do it, right? It's not just volunteering and sort of, whatever. It's if I'm gonna raise the hand, if I'm gonna take my family to Brazil, where they speak Portuguese, where I don't speak Portuguese, I'm gonna need to learn Portuguese to interact with my team that doesn't speak English. And that's the initiative, raising the hand. So in the corporate environment, here in Northeast Ohio, specifically in Goodyear, I have to prove myself every time I walk in. I do. That is the reality of the environment I'm in. And I do that by staying true to me and taking initiative. I am that guy in a lot of cases that is doing stuff that, it's not that it's bad stuff, it's just other people aren't willing to. And the reality is I've been able to build on that. As I mentioned, the different experiences, I've got a very wide network, and I've got a lot of different diverse experiences that allow me to function in different environments where some other people don't. But it's really, it's these two things. I mean, if I wanted you to take something away from this session today, and your question prompted it, is, men, if you start sacrificing and not living with integrity, the system will eat you alive. The system will find ways to pick at you. The system will find ways to box you. Because it will be an excuse. Without your integrity, right, then it's very easy to discount. because, oh, we can't trust him. Right? Then you become the stereotype, right? Then you play into all of what they say. They can't do that if you have integrity. They can try, but it won't work. Because you know you, and you are doing the right thing. So again, long answer. Yes, sir.
I have actually two different questions. One, so I'm a school principal, and then I think often like people ask me like, hey, what do you think about the military? I don't have any sort of like connection to the Navy or any other branch for that matter. And so my first question is like, do you ultimately recommend the Navy as opposed to like Air Force or any other branch? And is there like a demographic of student or person looking for a set of experience that you will recommend? And my other question is actually like, super different. I think that you are, like, you've navigated waters as like the only black person in the room a lot. And I think that there's at least times where like, I would notice that people will question my authenticity or like genuineness because of like whatever, right? And so I'm just curious if you could speak to your abilities to culturally adapt and like advice that you would have people like for like in that space.
Okay, so excellent question. Two questions. Military. So I was in the Navy. The four branches, 5 or 6 now, count space. Anyway, but they're different personalities. Like I was not a ground pounder. I was not interested in running up a hill with a rifle. So that sort of precluded me from the Marine Corps. The Army guys, no offense to the Army guys, but they're just crazy. Wasn't my thing. America has the most lethal fighting force on the planet. So it doesn't really matter what branch. The Army, the best logisticians in the world. They move stuff from one place to the other, people, bullets, bombs, whatever. Air Force, if you want to take it easy, that's the service for you. And then the Navy, I love to travel. So I've been around the planet 3 times now. I've been up in the Gulf, into Europe, into Asia. So the Navy seemed like a good fit for me. And it really, each branch has its own kind of mission and what they do, and really what you want to get out of it. Because that's another thing. What you would want to get out of it is important if you're looking at the military as a path. Second question: how do I navigate the room, being the only black man in the room? Mid-career folks, younger folks won't be as big of an impact. Every situation I'm in, I'm either going to be Malcolm X or Martin Luther King. It's that simple. When I walk in the room, am I Malcolm or am I Martin? And sometimes I got to be Malcolm. Again, for my folks that are younger in the career, Malcolm was a civil rights leader that was known for could be aggressive. By any means necessary, could be violent, right? So that was the stereotype and things around him. And then Martin Luther King was, passive, right? And really was being peace. And, some of the discussion between the two techniques is, Martin would get asked to come to the table. And Malcolm would stay outside because he would cause problems. So every situation I'm in, doesn't matter what it is, am I Martin, or am I Malcolm, or am I Martin? And I go through that in my head. And depending on what I want the outcome to be, is really where I'm in, and it's really a spectrum, right? I'm not the angry black man. I'm not in the room kicking stuff over, banging on tables. That gets you nowhere, right? But I will stand my ground, Joe. You've been in a room where it's like, this is not how it's gonna go down. Because I'm confident and I have my integrity. This is not what we're going to do in this situation. Or yes, I am aligned. Let's move forward. So hopefully that gives you a little insight to my technique.
I wonder if Mr. Johnson's had that kind of experience being a leader on campus, that you get some of these unique spaces and how you advocate for your community, but also being able to promote your African community. So you just second part of the question.
Right. I'm not gonna lie, a lot of it is code switching. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Sometimes, if I'm in certain spaces, I do need to talk differently to my specific audience. If I am in other spaces, I need to talk differently to a specific audience. However, the goal is still the same. Okay, so if I want to do a collaboration with another organization on campus, I can relate that to my group, but also coordinate that with another group as well. And it's going to be a mutual agreement to what's to be expected within this collaboration. When I first got hired as an RA, I did have some of my, co-RAs look at me differently. How is this person going to interact with this residence hall? Just like Mr. People said, integrity, staying true to myself, no matter what the situation is, no matter what the outcome is. For me personally, it is a little bit easier to connect with people. I know how to calm situations down. If there's ever an argument with some of my brothers, and I make sure I talk them down, get to the root of it, figure out how we can move forward in a positive manner. I've been in different tour groups where, different families didn't think I knew what I was talking about when it came to the university. At the end of the day, I still give out the information that I'm taught, and the outcome's still the same. Those, report cards at the end of the tours are still 10 out of 10. So that just lets me know that I'm doing my job, right? But I think it's really important that I don't take it too personally, because then if I start playing it in my own mind, that's what's going to mess me up for future situations. So just having my own integrity, moving according to what I was taught growing up, and then just reminding myself that it's bigger than me. So if there's a situation that's occurring, whether that be with any leadership position that I have on campus, I know flipping out is not going to be the best course of action, because that not only makes me look bad, but makes the people that are trying to get to where I'm at look bad too. So I think just understanding that it's bigger than me, and still, standing my ground. I'm not a pushover, but as Mr. People said, this is not how it's going to go down. But just being able to read the room and understand there's a time and place for everything. So that's pretty much how I go about it when I'm faced with different adversities and things like that.
There was another question, yes, ma'am.
So, you, Mr. Jackson, and Mr. Nicholson answered the question. So, this session is titled, "They Can Be What They See." So the question is, Mr. People, you kind of touched a little bit on who you saw that you didn't want to be. Can you speak a little bit on who have you seen that you want to be?
My mentors are in the room right now.
Yeah, as Mr. People said, some of my mentors are in here right now. Right in front of me, right here, in the back. Just being able to understand that I can reach out to them at any time. If I'm dealing with something, whether it be mental, spiritual, physical, I can reach out to my mentors for their help. When I think of mentorship, it's almost like passing the torch, literally. This is the knowledge that I've accumulated over the years. I'm entrusting you, just like you're entrusting me, to do good with this information